with the end of President Clinton's term, because it's not just his visit. There were really three different things that happened right in that last couple years of the Clinton term with the visit. The first, President Clinton began the process of dehyphenating our relationship between India and Pakistan. You know, for 30 years, we didn't really have an India policy. We had an Indo-Pak policy. And it was right around the 1999 period where President Clinton said, enough. We're not going to balance each country off of each other. And he leaned into the India relationship. So that's first. Second, there had been, again, for about 25 years, a focus on having India give up its nuclear weapons arsenal. That began to change with President Clinton's visit. If you look at the speech that he gave to the parliament when he visited, the focus was on testing, on fissile material cutoff. And it was, in fact, accepting India as a nuclear weapons power, which laid a bit of the foundation then for what happened in the Bush administration. And third, I think he set in place the underpinnings of the strategic partnership that exists today. You know, he has an interesting quote where he talks about, after too long a period of estrangement, the India and the United States have learned that being natural allies is a wonderful thing, but it is not enough. And he said we have to do more and show more. And he talked about the importance of becoming strategic partners. So sometimes we forget about those underpinnings. It did lead to this remarkable transformation during the Bush era that both Lisa and Ken worked on. I want to say one thing about civil nuke, because like Lisa, I was working in the Senate at that time. The Senate actually went into a rare closed session of Congress that I was sitting in as a staff member for the Senate Majority Leader. Fascinating time, but civil nuke for me was about three things. First, it was about accepting India as a nuclear weapons power officially. I think it had far less to do with civil nuclear energy cooperation. It was essentially accepting the status. That was a big deal. Secondly, it was about going to bat for India on the international stage, in international institutions, to kind of right-size the ship. In other words, India for too long felt it was excluded from the so-called diplomatic high table, and the U.S. went to bat for India and fought for India's kind of emergence into the nuclear club. And third, it was getting the U.S. Congress and the Indian American diaspora fully involved in the relationship. Without the Congress and without the pressure and the campaign by the Indian American diaspora, that civil nuclear deal would have never occurred. And then obviously during the Bush administration, we started the full kind of defense trade that became so important. I'll just say during my tenure, very quickly, there were four or five things that I was happy to have gotten done. The first was designating India as a major defense partner of the United States. And we were looking for a status for India that was different than any others. I will tell you, Lisa was very helpful to me in shaping that when we reached out to experts in the field. We were looking for a model much like the U.S.-Israel defense relationship that had a special status. And I think we've found it. And I think it's developing like that. Secondly, so glad to have gotten the Paris Climate Agreement done and it was the negotiations between India and the United States that I think showed the world what's possible when these two countries cooperate. Third, was the formalization of the joint strategic vision for the Indo-Pacific. This was, again, building on the Bush administration and the precursor to the free and open Indo-Pacific strategy. But if you look at that document signed in January of 2015, that is the first time we went out and declared this bilateral commitment. Fourth, I would just say President Obama was the only US president in American history to show up in India twice during his tenure. And that's a big deal. Personal relationships matter, showing up matters. And it led to, I think, this full-scale partnership, which we see that continued over the subsequent 4 years.